Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. I've been doing Radio Dead Air for ages, but I'm also an IT professional as well. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, who is also in IT. If you have tech questions for us, please go ahead and fire those off to requests@radiodeadair.com. How are you, Mike?
Not too bad. Longtime viewers may have noticed that I'm wearing different glasses. And unlike when I put on the Elon, I'm trying to hide that I'm using drugs actively, Musk, sunglasses last week, this is actually because I went to the eye doctor today, and my close-up prescription has changed enough that they're currently putting new lenses, or ordering rather, new lenses for my other pair of computer glasses. And when I pick those up, this pair of computer glasses will get changed out.
Okay. Well, I've replaced all the cameras. We talked about this last week. All the cat cameras are replaced. In case you're interested, I can show you real briefly. These are the TP-Link. I can't believe TP-Link has made a good product, but here it is. These are the Tapo cameras we put in.
It had to happen eventually, and it could be a mistake.
They look really good. Oh, hey, there's a kitty right there. Let me see if we can, the whole point of the cat cameras. Let me see if I can do a thing here. Let there be light. Light. There it is. Yeah, it's Claudius there. He's a good boy.
Is that actually turning on a light outside? Is that changing the mode on the camera?
It's turning on a light out there. It's got spotlights on it.
And I'm surprised he didn't react.
Nah, they're used to us turning lights on and off around here. They're used to people. But yeah, so they're in, they work. In fact, just to make another couple things easier on us.
I noticed, by the way, it's also a moth cam.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So just to make another things easier on us, they also offer temperature sensors, which are compatible with Home Assistant, like easily compatible. Didn't even have to, very little effort. So we can keep track of the outside temperature. We can keep track of inside temperature. Sarah can keep track of the temperature in her office when she's away, so she knows if her lizard is doing all right and whatnot in the summertime. It's nice. It's a nice little. It's cool. Depending on the audience, if they want to donate for it, we'll mess with that tomorrow. We might be even adding another camera for goats, because my neighbor has goats. And he says it's okay if I put his goats on the camera. They have a baby goat. People like baby goats. They're cute. So that's something we could do. So that worked out pretty well.
In that vein, there's someone I follow on Blue Sky who is a shepherd. And they have a Patreon, and one of the $10 things that you can do with their Patreon is name a new lamb in lambing season. And I think there's going to be a fight brewing among his $10 plus Patreons as to who gets to name a lamb Kendrick Lamar.
Well, there are some people having not a good week, and this has repercussions, which oddly enough, I haven't seen anyone in finance talking about, which is a big surprise there. All right. So we already knew that the RTX 50 series had some issues. There have been
No, Nash. It doesn't have issues. It has subscriptions.
There's already been talk that they're having yield problems with the 50 series, which is why the more expensive ones are hard to come by. And even the less expensive, and I say the less expensive, like $1,000 cards, are hard to come by as well. Well, let's couple that with another issue, and that is a lot
shipping with defects.
Yeah, the ones that are actually in the channel available for retail a lot of them appear to be defective.
Now, Nvidia is claiming right now that it is less than 0.5%. However,
However,
I state that is just from their internal checking. What made it out into the world may be significantly higher. We don't know yet. They may never report what it is. When you turn in your Blackwell card that is missing ROPs, they're supposed to give you a new one. I'm waiting now for the first story of the person who turns in a card that was defective and gets another card that is defective.
You got a lot of background noise there, Mike.
That's just a fan. I mean, it shouldn't be anything. I can turn it off. It's a little chilly here.
Yeah, because it's having a little trouble. Even the noise cancellation's having a little trouble dealing with that. All right. Anyway, well, yeah, it's better. All right. Here's the problem. And Gamers Nexus put out a video that breaks this down a whole lot better. You should definitely check it out because it's a very informative video. But just to cover it quickly here. A lot of these parts are, they use the same main chip, but they turn off parts of it in order to segment the products. Or if if one of the chips aren't good enough, they a little defective off the line, they turn off the bad parts and they make a different product out of it.
So for example, if it's not a 5080, if it doesn't make 5080 Ti specs, maybe it makes 5080.
Well, right now, even the 5090 GPU, the chip for the 5090, even that one has already, even the full 5090 that works has parts of it turned off. They're reserving, apparently, they're reserving the right to be able to have a full chip for a 5090 Ti. Maybe God only knows what that one would look like.
$2,500?
Here, part of the problem comes in when they're turning off these segments of the card to make, say, it doesn't clear the 5080, so they turn off a little bit of it and it's a 5070 Ti. Unfortunately, there seems to be a linkage between the parts they're turning off and a couple of extra ROP units, ROPs. That is a raster operating unit. What that means is rasterization is the actual drawing that the card does. And the more of them they have, they're kind of like a multi-core, only really a whole lot of them. The more of them the card has, the faster it can draw things, the faster the frame rate,
And if you turn off, say you're supposed to just turn off a block of 8, but it turns off 3 blocks of 8. Suddenly that's not in the spec for what
in this case
anywhere.
In this case, it's only technically turning off 1 unit, but based on the way that Nvidia has calculated these things and presented them, because bigger number better, that 1 unit is counted as 8 units. And every one of these that's coming up as defective has precisely 8 raster units disabled. Now, that doesn't sound
above and beyond what's supposed to be disabled.
Right. And that doesn't sound like a lot. When, if the card has 112 raster units and you turn off 8 and it goes down to 104, that doesn't sound like a whole lot. Except
that's a 7% decrease.
And it does come through in the performance. Performance has been notably that could be anywhere 5 to 10% less performance, depending on the title. And when we're talking about a generation that's only barely made any gains over the previous generation, you're making these even worse. Like if you're taking a 5080 and screwing it up enough that it's closer to a 5070 Ti in performance, that's
still charging 5080 prices.
Yeah, that's still crazy. And to make matters worse, Gamers Nexus, again, very informative video, you should see it. They've been on tours of these factories, and they know how these chips are tested when they come off the line. They take the chip, it goes into a little machine, they run a little bit of software on it. It tests the chip, it says chip is good or chip is bad. That's simple. Just a little, nothing they have to do that's like exceptionally complicated. It's a standard procedure.
And they know basically how it's banned out in the testing. So this is NVIDIA deliberately supplying parts to board partners that are not good.
Maybe. It's one of two things. It's either an unimaginable amount of incompetence, because again, this is a very simple test. It's nothing complicated. They do this with every card. It's like you take the chip, plop it in the thing, run the software. Does it green, red? If it's red, send it back. If it's green, it's good. So either someone has fucked up red and green, or, and this is another little bit more sinister side of it, their yields may be so bad that they feel they have no choice but to send out defective chips and
Which
deal with it later.
It feels like a very bad middle management decision of ship it anyway. No, we're behind. You just need to ship it.
That does.
If they return it, if they catch us, we'll go, oh, somehow that slipped past quality control. We'll give you a new one.
Except there's a problem there. The board partners were already saying they were right down to the wire getting shipments from Nvidia to actually make the cards to send them out. That seems to indicate that Nvidia is not able to make enough of these things to provide these for people. And on top of that, if someone has to RMA one of these, think about how like Micro Center were having they had 10 of these total for an entire city of the 5090. Say you managed to get your hands on one of the coveted 5090s and now it's broken. If you send it back, who knows how long before you'll actually have your hands on a 5090. And it was funny that along the way, NVIDIA said, oh no, it's just the 5090 and the 5070 Ti. It's not the 5080. And then it was the 5080 too. So every released RTX 50 series card has a chance of showing this defect. This is so bad. So we have some of these are so hard to find. They've effectively got a paper launch. The 5070 Ti has 4080 style performance. Sure, 4080 super style performance, but you're going to be paying 4080 super prices for it, because you can't get a hold of one at the $750 level. So that's kind of useless. There have been fires, the melting plugs again, and now you're rolling the dice when you buy one, because if you get one and it's screwed up, and you have to send it back, how long are you waiting for a new card? Like seriously, how long are you waiting? How long? This has been, and okay, the reason why I said the finance guys aren't talking about it, and it's really crazy that they aren't. NVIDIA has, there are two elements to chips, broadly speaking. You have the lithography, that's the process by which the die is actually created. And then there's the
salsa.
No.
Sorry, you said chips.
Then there's the architecture, which is the actual design that the lithography uses to make the chip.
Yeah, this is a very complicated layout, and they're constantly trying to come up with better and faster layouts to do this, and they don't always succeed.
The architecture here is called Blackwell. The previous one was called Ada. They meant to call it Lovelace, but then nobody in the office realized that there was a very famous porn star called Linda Lovelace, and that would have caused problems. So instead of calling it Lovelace, they called it Ada.
That's the problem I always had. I don't believe no one in that office knew about that.
I don't either. They're just very stupid.
The entire accounting department knew. I guarantee you.
Now, the AI accelerators that NVIDIA makes and their gaming GPUs are completely different parts. Totally different. They are not interchangeable. They're not modular like Ryzen CPUs or anything. They're totally different. If you send a batch through to make AI processors, that's not a GPU. That's not something you use for a gaming card. However, the architecture, the design around how they've come up with better efficiency gains for the chip, they're both Blackwell, and they're both on the same lithography, which is the process of making it. So we're seeing these defects, these yield problems with Blackwell gaming cards. How bad is it going to be on the AI accelerator side?
I'm going to be honest with you, Nash. I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean,
and when we're talking about these AI accelerators,
if it makes Sam Altman cry, I'm in favor of it.
These
I do care.
The model we're talking about here is going to be, I believe it's going to be called the B100. And I don't think B100 isn't out in the wild yet. And it's probably because they're having issues with it.
They can't make enough of them to set up the servers for even a minimum install.
And the other thing they've done is they have been clearing the channel of the H100 and A100, which were the previous generation ones, because they don't want to compete with themselves. They made this mistake with the 3000 series. They made too many of those that when the 4000 series came out, they're like, crap, no one's buying the new ones. So they've been trying to clear the channel of the old AI accelerators while waiting for the new to be available, but there have been delays. We might reach a point where Nvidia is struggling to find anything to sell. I've been trying to sound the alarm on this, just for the sake of, it's weird that none of the finance people are talking about this. This could represent a stock issue of a major drop in Nvidia stock if this becomes a problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that Nvidia needs to address.
Let's be fair. The stock market itself is also looking at some big shakeups in the future.
But this is something that Nvidia needs to address with shareholders. And these people who work in finance reporting, ostensibly they're analysts who are supposed to tell you, give you advice on investing your funds, but they're not covering this very obvious little, and it's funny to see. No one who's been covering Nvidia has even mentioned anything about this. So we'll see what happens. But yeah,
well, I mean, no one who is in the papers as a financial / technical analyst. I mean, we've got Ed Zitron who is kind of covering it.
Yeah.
As part of his broader AI is trash.
Well, let's look over at AMD, who have, I guess, a little bit of good news, because Nvidia basically stepping on a rake and slamming into their own dick has been the best thing that could happen to AMD.
Indeed. And to a lesser extent, Intel.
Yeah. Now, AMD actually waited up until almost the day of announcement to decide the prices on the RX 9070 XT and the RX 9070.
And they put okay prices on these.
I don't agree.
Not spectacular. Okay.
These are the Nvidia fucked up prices. Had Nvidia not fucked up, these would be much lower. The price for the 9070 XT is $600. The price for the 9070 is $550, which I guarantee you, within 3 months, that'll be closer to $475. There's no way they're selling that thing for $550.
Now, I will say these are prices before the board partners get in there, so expect a few extra dollars on there.
Yeah, but they're going to make
for bells and whistles. But if they have production numbers on these that are better than Nvidia's, which I don't see how they can't be, they'll sell these.
The numbers, the prices had Nvidia not fucked up. If Nvidia had not fucked up, then the RX 9070 XT would have been $550, and the 9070 would have been $450, $425, somewhere around there. Those would have been the Nvidia has plenty of supply and none of the cards have any defects. That would have been the price. But because Nvidia has supply issues and now they have to deal with RMAs and other issues like that, that's why this is at $600. The good news is that based on AMD's benchmarks, and these are internal benchmarks, we'll see what comes up. The good news is the 9070 XT is hovering close to 4070 Ti performance, 4080 maybe. It's somewhere in that ballpark. They're claiming improved ray tracing performance, which has been kind of a weakness for AMD. They're going to be 16 gigabyte cards.
Which is pretty good. I mean, because they'll be the big brother of this release, which will be the 20 gigabyte and 24 gigabyte cards. But that's a few months out.
FSR 4 is they're not. Well, Mike, these are the biggest ones they're making.
So these are.
Yeah, these are the biggest ones. They're not making any higher. These are the top of the line for this generation for AMD.
Okay, so we're not going to see a 7900 XT or XTX equivalent.
No. This is as big as they're making it. Nothing bigger than this. They'll make smaller, but they're not making any bigger. And I don't know how much of the mid-range they're going to get back with $600 on these cards. I really don't. That's kind of what they were shooting for. They were trying to gain back market share with this. And $50 of daylight between the two is terrible segmentation. That's why I'm pretty sure this one's the 9070 is going to be down to 500 in a matter of months. It's going to be gone because otherwise they're too close in price to the point where no one's going to buy the 9070. $50 difference. People are going to buy the 9070 XT or they're not going to buy it. They're going to wait. They're going to do what people always do with AMD. They're going to wait a little bit and the price will come down. These were not great prices.
I will say, looking at the specs, I would have preferred that these had a bigger bus. That's just me.
Yeah.
They have PCIe 5 support. Yeah. Fantastic.
They're not going to saturate it, but they have it.
No. But the point of PCIe 5 is not to saturate it, Nash. It's so you can put it in a PCIe 5 times 16 slot and then use your other slot for something else. You drop to times 8, you still have phenomenal performance.
It's fair. That's true.
I mean, if I didn't have a video, if I was building the computer that I have now, I would be getting probably one of these just so I could throw in an extra PCIe 5 M.2. Because if I use any of my other M.2 slots, that slot drops to a times 8, my video card slot. And I'd be like, I'm okay with that.
Now, we don't know what, obviously, we're still a ways out from seeing if they have a 9060 XT and a 9060. I really hope that 9060 does not go past $300, but who knows how stupid AMD is going to be about this. Regardless, the performance looks solid.
If you're right, then they might go 350, 375 at launch, and then go 3 months later, we're dropping it to 300.
Yeah. But performance looks good.
Nvidia is still having difficulties at that point. It'll still sell like hotcakes.
It also looks like we are moving, like, based on what Intel released, based on what AMD is releasing, based on what NVIDIA is releasing, it almost looks like 1080p is no longer the entry point anymore. Like, I'm sure people are still going to have
1440.
Yeah. I'm sure people are still going to have their 1080p monitors, but what they're shooting for now as the entry point to PC gaming is going to be 1440p going forward, which is pretty good. That's considerably better.
That's not necessarily a bad thing to be at.
Yeah. So this was kind of good, kind of bad. We'll see what performance are when they actually release them. We still got a few more weeks for that, I believe. We'll see what the
again, because you can't always trust internal benchmarks. I mean, with a couple bobbles, AMD has been pretty good about that lately. Not
Ryzen
perfect.
less so. The GPU side's been kind of accurate. The CPU side has been kind of, but
Well, this is probably different teams managing it, and you got
Yes,
you
there
got to
are.
manage it. You've got a manager over there who's going like, "No, we can lie."
what was it? Well, I forget if it was Gamers Nexus or Hardware Unboxed said that AMD's graphic side, in case you don't remember, used to be a company called ATI that was bought by AMD and eventually became. But what Hardware
I
Unboxing
had an ATI TV tuner card at one point.
So did I. I forget if some Gamers Nexus or Hardware Unboxed said is that over at AMD, effectively, while they bought ATI, it's still kind of ATI over there. It's not really incorporated. It's still its own separate thing. So it's like a company within a company instead of being like all one part. Yeah. Diagra specs wise, your 7800 XT has 4 more compute units than 9070. Don't know how much difference that makes. It's a newer generation, so it's going to make the 9070 is probably going to be faster than the 7800 XT.
Yeah,
By how much we don't know.
Yeah, by how much? But you're also looking at possibly different bus internal speeds, lots of different factors that until we see Gamers Nexus or Hardware Unboxed someone do a in-depth review of the cards, we won't know if this is an actual upgrade or if it's an Nvidia generational upgrade.
Yeah. So,
by the way, the funniest thing about that TV tuner I used to have, because my brain is stuck on it. If I watched TV on my computer and then closed the TV tuner, my printer would refuse to print.
yeah, you mentioned
I would have to go into the not device manager. I'd have to go in and kill a process, and the printer would suddenly go, "Oh, I can print now."
Yeah. Final story this week. It's sort of a nostalgia RIP on this one. You may remember way back before Discord, before Zoom, the video conferencing, video call software was Skype. Skype was it.
We used to do this show on Skype.
We used to do a show on Skype. We used to, bunch of people I know we used to network on Skype. Skype was everything. It was Skype in 2010 to early 2011 was fraught, shall we say, because back then they were still functioning on a peer-to-peer network.
Yep.
They didn't have servers. They had super nodes. And sometimes all of Skype would just say, I give up. And the whole network would fall down. Then Microsoft bought them.
It would usually be around some big event. Like you couldn't use Skype during a World Series game.
Yeah. Then Microsoft bought them, and they added actual real servers, and Skype started becoming more and more reliable. And but then Skype started getting competition. Google had a call system. Then Discord came out and caught right up to them. Zoom became the teleconferencing king. And at long last, Microsoft is retiring Skype. It is going the way it is. It is ceased to be. It is pining for fjords. It is an X communication protocol.
One of the big problems with Skype is, of course, that because even when Microsoft had the servers, and it still sort of had that peer-to-peer-ish thing going in the background, random people would go, "Hey, do you want to Skype?" And you'd go, "Who are you?" And it would turn out to be an early porn bot.
They are in in May, after 23 years of service. That is just incredible.
Why? That's like 5 times longer than the average Google service.
In May, they are shutting down Skype. They are replacing it with Microsoft Teams, which is horrible.
It is. Okay. We use Teams at work, and I dislike it. There's 2 versions of Teams we use at work. There is the dedicated app, which takes forever to load, or the web page version, which loads really quickly, but I can't convince my coworkers that it's better because it loads. You can do stuff. Just use the web page. What's wrong with you?
One of the things that's not migrating over to Teams is a function of Skype that has kind of it's a bit niche now, but a lot of people still rely on it, and that is the Skype had the ability to call regular phone numbers instead of to call like people's cell phones, to call landlines. And you would pay in a Skype-based credit and you could make phone calls, which came in real handy for some particular people. It also came in handy for things like when your phone was down or when you need long distance service across countries. It was useful. Well, you have 10 weeks to use any remaining Skype calling credits, because those will be going poof because Teams does not have that functionality. So
Teams Free doesn't have that functionality. Teams people can call into with a phone. We prefer not to because we can't necessarily verify the person calling in is the one they're claiming to be. But you know,
it's kind of the end of the era of an era or error. Yeah, that too. End of an era for this. I have mixed feelings about it. It's kind of like when AOL Messenger went away, when ICQ started, going away. It's we've moved on. The world has moved on, and it's a little sad. But Skype, after a certain point, they stopped trying. Microsoft just said, well, we've got Skype. What more do you need? And Discord went, all of this. And Zoom went, all of this. And Skype went, well, if you want to be flashy and show off, sure. But I don't want to. I could, but I don't want to. So, yeah, it's go bye-bye. Sad to see, but, times change. All right. Now it's time to get to your questions this week. Let's see what we got. Do we have any more come in yet? Or we just got these three? I think we might just have these three, which, that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. This is from Scott V. Hi, Nash and Mike and Floops. I wanted your opinion on something. How do I space out my USB components bandwidth across the motherboard? What I mean is, I know motherboards have multiple USB controllers, and I want to try to avoid clogging any given controller, but they don't label which USB ports go to what controller. Is there a way to find out? And if there isn't, should I just space them out across the available ports? I'm planning on running an Elgato 4K capture card, a Go XLR, a mixer, and a 1080p webcam. Thank you, Scott B.
I'm not really sure that's an issue. Is it an issue?
It depends. It depends on how much data you're trying to. For example, if you're using, the way your motherboard works is the USB ports aren't all going into one thing. There are multiple little controller setups on the motherboard to handle different ones. I believe the chipset has a certain number of them built in, and those have the fastest access to the CPU. And those are typically the ones that are USB 3, USB 4, the higher end ones. Then sometimes they add on some extra. There's like USB 2, they still get some access there.
Okay,
and,
so with that in mind, then what I would say is, Scott, look up the make of your motherboard. If it says it's got this many USB 3s, those are generally color-coded. Yeah, blue?
Well, the color coding doesn't matter, because while it could still be the same speed, knowing which controller it goes to, because there are different controllers. The reason why the controllers matter is if you try to shove too much bandwidth down one controller and not any on the other USB controllers in the motherboard, you run the risk of throttling your devices, because they can't all you're clogging the pipe. All stuff can't get through there.
So I'm looking at the device manager, seeing if there's any way I can figure this out.
Well, no, it's it's probably gonna be in your let me see if it is gonna be in your motherboard manual. Let's see. I'm looking at my motherboard manual because I could sworn it's actually in there. So let's see. Manual and documentation. Come on.
It should be in the manual if it's a reputable motherboard company. Yeah, now that you mention it. When I was putting this together, it did mention, I didn't really pay attention.
Yeah.
Said, you've got this many controllers, you've got this plug can control this many things, this plug can control this many things, this plug can control this many things, etc. The only one I haven't got to work is the front USB-C. It just doesn't want to turn on.
Those are finicky.
Right.
Those are finicky with I found I had to use like different cables to get those to work. They're very picky about which cable they'll accept because I built mine myself. I adapted my case to work with it. Let's see. Trying to find the part of the motherboard that would show. They've changed the manual here. What the hell? What have you done? Oh, that's the BIOS manual. Okay, they split it off. All right. Well, then just show me. I don't need the BIOS manual. I need the hardware. There it is. It's kind of nice they split off the BIOS manual. Now I know they've done that. I'll have to look at it a little closer. Let's see. Zoom in here. I'll bring it over here so you folks can see what I'm looking at. All right. Typically, motherboard manual will have some indications about what is using what. And you see them labeled here. And I believe, are the ports labeled? Yeah, it looks like they are. Yeah, here we go. To some extent, it looks like if you're very careful, look at these numbers on the back. It will give you an idea of which one of these ports. They're very hard to see. Let's see if I can. Computer, enhance. These are the USB ports on the back. And if you look there, they have little numbers on them. USB 3.2, G1, C1. It sounds like gibberish there. But if you go down here, and let's see, look at the features on the board. It lists out which connectors go where to some extent. So it may not be entirely straightforward, but you might be able to get an idea of which ports go to which controller. Let me see what it says for USB slots down here. There we go.
And then split it out.
Yeah. And figure it out. Let's see. It is still, however.
Now, that said, if you're worried about whatever your highest bandwidth device is, you can always when you're pairing these out, when you're saying what should plug in where, you can always put your mouse and your keyboard on the same thing as your camera, because the mouse and the keyboard literally cannot do enough to that chip portion to affect the camera.
Honestly, it gets to be a little into the weeds trying to look into the motherboard manual to find the stuff. Your other instinct, which is to spread the connectors out across the connectors, is probably a good one, because the physical location of the ports is they are actually, the further distant they are from one another, the way they connect to the motherboard is probably different. You'll definitely, the 2.0 is not going to be on the same, the USB 2.0 ports are not going to be on the same bandwidth as anything else. And you can put, let me see what list of devices you were talking about here. I'm willing to bet the Go XLR would be fine on USB 2.0, but it'll do USB 3 as well, unless it's got, a specific connector that doesn't let you do that. The 4K Elgato capture card is going to have to be a 3.0, and the 1080p webcam will probably be a 2.0.
On the old computer, I ran the webcam on a 2.0. My previous webcam, not my current webcam, and it was just fine. Nash never said until the camera actually started to go during a show. Yeah, thankfully at the end of a show. Never had a problem with the camera.
Honestly, what you're talking about connecting, the only one that has probably going to be concerns about bandwidth is that 4K capture card. And even then, USB 3.0 will handle it. I don't think let's say you also have your mouse or your keyboard on here as well, maybe, a printer or something on it, you're not flooding it with this stuff. This is not going to do it. So no worries. I think you're good here.
Indeed.
All right. Next one is from Thunderbones. Okay. Hey, fellas, got a problem. I want to start streaming to Twitch, but our modem and router are downstairs and they have to stay there. Signal doesn't reach the whole house if it doesn't. But I know I need a stable connection to stream. Will Wi-Fi be enough, or do I have to run a long cable downstairs? We rent and I can't drill in the floor. Don't think the landlord will let us either. Thanks, Thunderbones. Oof. A few years ago, I would have said, no, you could not stream with Wi-Fi and you would have to use an Ethernet cable. And that's kind of what I did a few years ago. Back when I was still in Illinois, which is, that was 8 years back. My goodness, how time goes by. I first moved there 11 years back. And so back then, back in the last decade ago, for streaming back then, I had to, the house I was at in Illinois only had one cable, coax cable input, and it was downstairs. It was an old house and it didn't even have grounded outlets. I was using cheaters, which was a bad idea, but needs must, right? Was troublesome. So my only real option to make everything work was to leave the router and the modem downstairs because, otherwise something was going to have to come upstairs. And either it was going to be running a really long coax cable, which gets a little troublesome. Coax is not very flexible. It does not like to go places easily. Or run a really long Ethernet cable. And Ethernet cables they're used to running longish cables. So that's what I did. I ran it up to the ceiling, over across the window, over to the stairs, up around the stairs, up around the door. And I noticed that people I lived there before already had to deal with this kind of crap because they had drilled a hole above the door. I figured they probably ran coax there for like TV and stuff. So I was able to get the network cable, the Ethernet cable. Yeah, I think it was Cat 6, but whatever. Okay. I was able to get that through there to my computer, which was upstairs. And it was a pain in the butt, but it works. And that's, if you're going to have to, if you feel like you want to try to do that, it's not super difficult. You can find, like, if you're renting, I've used double-sided stick-on cable ties points, and that worked fairly well for me. If you run it carefully, you can do it in such a way that you're not going to cross over any places where people are going to be walking or anything. So that's a consideration there. And it will work just fine. And a longish Ethernet cable is not that super expensive. That is an option. But in the 10 years since I used to do this, Wi-Fi has gotten way better. Way, way better. I say this, I tried to set up our media server that used to be in that closet over there. I moved it out to there because it was getting too hot in that closet and it was helping warm this room up, which was already a problem. So I'm like, I've got to move this thing. And I was worried about the connection type. I tried power line connectors, but they were really terrible. So finally I broke down and I said, well, I'll just run it with a reasonably priced Wi-Fi 6 card, which aren't that expensive. It was like $25, I think. And I'll run it with that and I'll see how the server connection runs. And it's been remarkably stable. it does it you would not know that it's on a Wi-Fi connection. And not only we use it for Plex server, we also stream antenna television across it as well. It works fine. The best thing I can tell you to do is test with the Wi-Fi. Run some tests. See how resilient it is in your house. See how stable the bandwidth is. And if it will work for you.
Also, be aware of what devices are between your computer and that router. Because if the kitchen's between you, anyone who uses the microwave is going to mess up your signal.
Yeah. Ruler2 says mesh network. That is a possibility. You can move the router upstairs and try to set up a mesh network with repeaters and stuff. However, that is a little bit more of an expensive solution. That the cheapest solution relatively is running Cat 6 cable, because 50 feet of that is not that. It's that's about $20 or $30 right there. The next option is trying the Wi-Fi cable. Wi-Fi card. Just personal preference. I like to use a PCIe Wi-Fi card. I don't trust USB. PCIe connections don't collide with anything else, and they have very fast connections to the CPU. So a little bit of extra priority there, and they're not that expensive. And then if you want to try something like a mesh network, Asus has some decent ones. Netgear has some decent ones. You can see what hardware there is to try, but then you're getting into a little bit more of a pricey solution, and that depends how much you want to spend on this. And you're saying you want to start streaming, so it's all a matter of how much money you want to lay down right now. So, the Wi-Fi, it's come a long way. It's a lot more stable and reliable than once it was. It surprised me too, but I'm remembering back I tried to stream on Wi-Fi way back, and it just didn't work. But now Sarah has used, she's not that far from the router. She's over there. She streamed some charity stuff before, and she's on a Wi-Fi connection, has had zero trouble streaming, no issues. And this is very close here, and it's right next door, but she streamed with the Wi-Fi, didn't have an issue.
Yep.
Give it a shot. All right, last one is, let's see, do we have anything else? Just double check, see any more. All right, this is the last one. This is from Shelly. She says, or he, it's hard to tell. Sorry, I don't want to assume, but we'll go with they, just be on the polite side. Pardon me. Hi, Nash and Mike. I want to upgrade my system before the tariffs kicks in, which starting to sound like Groundhog's Day, but anyway. I want to go AM5. I can probably handle a lower end B650 board like that Gigabyte Eagle. And I'm going to keep my 2070 Super for a while longer until I can see what the new cards do to prices and used prices. My question is, can I get away with using a 7500F instead of a 7600? Price difference is around $50 if I order it from AliExpress and wait a while, which seems like a good deal. Any downsides? Thank you, Shelly. Well, in terms of hardware, just to let everybody know, the 7500F and the 7600 are essentially the exact same part with one difference. The 7500F has the integrated graphics disabled. Probably they were defective, and this is their way of selling 7600s with defective graphics while retaining all the CPU parts. It's just as fast. It's pretty close to just as fast. It's clocked a little lower than the 7600, but you could overclock it a little bit. Same power envelope, 65 watts. They're pretty close to one another. They're on even, the 7600 and the 7500F. They're almost identical parts. A $50 difference. It's nice, but there's one question I want to ask here that will make all the difference in the world, and that is, are you keeping your old CPU cooler? Because if you are, then, and I looked it up, getting this thing for like $132 off of AliExpress, as opposed to getting a 7600 for $180, that's a pretty decent deal. The only trouble is these are going to be tray CPUs. These ship in trays. These are not retail package. The 7500F is not a CPU that has been made available for sale to, you can't walk into like a Micro Center and get them. These are made for system builders. These are made for OEMs. So what they do, if you get a hold of them, they send them out in these big plastic trays of CPUs. That's where the discount is coming from. You're not getting a box. Probably what only warranty you're going to get is from AMD, and that's going to be, you're going to have to figure out how to get that. And the other thing you're not getting is you're not getting a Wraith cooler with it. The 7600 includes a Wraith cooler. The 7500F does not. Now, admittedly, it's a Wraith cooler. It's a little rinky-dink piece of shit, but it's free and it works.
Yeah. But if you've already got a cooler and you're going to continue to use that cooler, by all means.
If you have an AM4 cooler, and I double check with whoever the manufacturer and make sure that it's compatible with AM5, because they're not all 100%. But if you have an older cooler for AM4, this is kind of a good, and you say you can wait. This is kind of a good deal, because $50 is a pretty significant price point between two CPUs that are effectively the same. The other downside here is, and it's something you've already been working with because you have an AM. I presume you have AM4 or something like it right now. The other you don't say what you currently have. The other downside here is, by not having integrated graphics, it makes assembling and troubleshooting issues trickier. For example, if my graphics card decides to shit the bed,
which has happened,
I'll have no idea what's going on, because the system will not put out video. There's no way to put out video. I'd have to scramble up another video card or something, put that in there and whatnot. Integrated graphics are nice for emergencies. If you feel like you can get by without that, again, $50 is a nice price difference. And if this is like your starter CPU for AM5 and you're going to upgrade later, that's not bad. That's not bad. Again, the 7600 is on a great performer. It's not the best, but it's on a par with a 5800. What was it, 5800 X3D? It was pretty close to that.
I think so.
And that's still a monster of a gaming chip. Even being 6-core 12-thread, it's still a really nice deal right now. Thanks to an ad, Nash said, if it shits the bed, shit has room for great price. Yeah. So again, AliExpress, also there's a little bit of buyer beware there too, because they don't have a whole lot of what I'd call, I've ordered a few things from AliExpress. Mainly what I've ordered have been water cooling parts, like fittings and 90-degree connectors and that sort of stuff, because you can get those nice ones cheap overseas and have them shipped out, or you could before everything, we don't know what the tariffs are going to look like. You can get those shipped pretty cheap if you don't mind waiting a couple weeks for them to show up. You get a pretty nice discount. But with a CPU, I don't know what sort of guarantees you're going to have. And again, these are not boxed CPUs. These are CPUs that come in a tray. They're meant for OEMs. They're not meant for end use. They'll work just fine. You can drop these into any AM5 board. It'll work. There's not a special BIOS thing that needs to be done for it at all. It will just go. It will bang, you're done. But yeah, the warranty, I don't know. It depends on how much that bothers you. If you're going to maybe wait another generation and then see about getting a nice big one, like when the 10 series comes out or whatever they're going to call it, they're probably going to call whatever next Ryzen's. They're going to use the AI shit unless the bubble pops. I guarantee you it's going to be annoying. We'll know that in maybe a year or two. My 7900X is still fine.
Yeah, it'd be great if one of the companies, let's say, goes out and they're going to brand everything with AI. They've got all the artwork done. They started the production. The bubble pops, and they go, "How soon can we reorder new boxes?"
Downsides, I mean, yeah, it's the downside from it. It's just a little bit of risk involved here, but it's essentially the same CPU as the 7600. Same L3 cache, L2, L1. The cache is all the same, which that's the main potential issue. Like some of the APU versions of the AM5 stuff, those are on a different process. They have less cache memory. But there's no difference between the 75. Again, like I said, the 7500F, from all appearances, is a flawed 7600. That apparently the graphics part didn't work, so they just disabled that and sold it without the graphics part working. And there you go. Problem solved. They can make some money off of them. Otherwise, they're practically the same CPU. Yeah, if you have to order a cooler, however, that's when the price, because that will take the price difference from $50 down to $30. And that's when you have to rethink things at that point. Because if you're going to be getting however, if you were going to plan on getting a separate cooler anyway, but that's my take on it. Yeah, the 7500F, you're not going to have no real big downsides on that one. It's a good CPU. It's a little bit older right now, but 96, the regular 9000 series didn't give too much of a performance uplift over the 7000 series anyway. So there you go. All right, I think that's it for this week. One more double check. Yep, got him. All right, we will be back next Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you got tech questions for Mike and myself, you can send those to requests at radio.air.com, and we will try to help you out with it. Until then, for Mike and myself, we'll see you next time. Good night, folks.